let's go through the goals for our day and see if we can meet those. Can you see in the back? All right. Just very quickly, we're going to go back over the feedback that we received at our last meeting because you all evaluated the meeting and it's designed to meet your needs, but also the needs of the district. So getting feedback, we'll review it. It helps me to plan. We're going to look at the baseline data for the 5 R's. You evaluated administrative council because that's what we were before we started the last meeting. We're going to look at your homework, which is the strengths of the Leadership Council on your strength-based reflections. Hopefully everybody did that. Determine the benefits of those strengths for our district, and then look at strategies that would support realignment of our resources toward priorities, which is kind of heading in that direction of priority-based budgeting. How do we deal with that? And we'll have an activity there. Then I'm going to just give a brief update on strategic planning. The board passed a resolution on Monday night to have a company come on board and help us with that this year, so I'll give you a quick update on where we're headed there. Questions about our goals for the day? And mostly from here on out, you're going to do the reading of the PowerPoint slides. Then I don't have to talk. All right, just a quick review. I'd like you to just read through. If you need to get up to see it better, please feel free. I shared this with you in August. This gets us back, our heads in the game of who we are and why we're meeting. So just read it for yourself. When you're done, just kind of look at me and give me a quick thumbs up. We talked here, showed you this the last time. I will put it back in front of you, repetition, 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 because it helps us to know our focus. The very center, student, teacher, and all of the content that we teach with all of our strategies around that. Leadership Council is a strategy for keeping us all working together and moving toward that central core, which is all of our students, and all of us rowing in the same direction to get there. So that will just be a repeated process for us to make sure we keep working together and know the target. This was your feedback about the first meeting in August, so take a second and just review what you said about the meeting in August. It's fair to let you know the feedback. And again, you can just give me a quick thumbs up once you're ready, and that allows me to know when to change the slide for everybody. And following this slide is various comments people made, and they range from things were great to, hey, I'd like to know a little more. That's a little small, so if you can't see it, feel free to get up and move closer, and then you can move right back to your seat. But again, once you sort of read through them, give me a quick thumbs up. I'm being purposeful about putting every single comment in front of you because it's fair that we all know how we view the meeting, and feedback is simply that. It's a tool for helping us grow and move forward. So if there were comments that would say, don't ever do this again, it doesn't mean we wouldn't do it again. It means we should consider it or look into it more deeply. Most of those are pretty positive about the day. That's great. But I want the feedback also that helps us to improve. So if you need to give that, feel free. No names attached, but we all need to grow from our feedback, and feedback is just another tool. Anybody want to say anything about what you've seen so far? You don't have to, but if something's burning and you have to say it, please feel free. that enough wait time? All right, the other thing we did is we looked at the 5 R's, which are the 5 right behaviors of effective teams. If you've forgotten what they are, you can pull up your handout that's on your table that summarizes those titles with more detail. And if you take a look at the blue percentages, they were the highest rating in the group of folks who submitted, and almost everybody did. We had 58 people reply. And remember, we had a group of people who were not with us with admin council that are with us now, so they likely rated not sure. And that's why those percentages are what they are. So if you want to take a look at each of the rows, compare it to the sheet you have with you so you understand it. This is baseline data only. Now we can improve and grow from here as an effective team, and that will be our goal. So take a minute and see what you see there. And of course, these are our perceptions, individually, collected together. Oh, they are strongly disagree, disagree, trying, agree, strongly agree, and not sure. Yeah. No, but those would be great titles, wouldn't they? Comments, reflections, anybody thinking anything in particular that you want to share with the broader group? Otherwise, I just want to make sure you know the baseline data. And we'll come back to it again after we evaluate ourselves further down the line and compare our growth. That's really the reason for the tool. Okay, the other piece of this tool was what we wanted to call ourselves in terms of an effective team. Looking at, if you look at the characteristics, a complacent, a dysfunctional, a fully functioning, resilient team, or a driven team. And each of you decided where you thought we best fit. Our goal, of course, is fully functioning and resilient, meaning we have great relationships and we get the work done. So that would be our goal. So we have some movement to make. Have a brief conversation at your table, no more than 2 minutes, about what you see in there and what you think would be some things we should consider if our goal is moving to the upper right quadrant.
I don't know if people agree or not, but we thought maybe we didn't score ourselves as fully functioning because of the second bullet point, which was the well-being of each member, because a lot of our teachers and other support staff have been in such a bad place over the last couple of years with everything going on, so maybe that's why we didn't bump ourselves up. We didn't think it had to do maybe with the other bullet points.
Our conversation had to do with the largest percentage, which is the complacent team. One of the comments was we didn't really see it as complacent because we were thinking of the term complacent as being everyone's okay with where we are. But we also talked about us being complacent because people feel they can't do anything about where we are. And the other comment that we talked about had to do with that percentage and how one particular experience could change where you would view our team, or a couple of experiences that you've had, no matter how long you've been here.
If we did not assess ourselves, would we know what we're aiming for as a team, collectively? I mean, we might individually know, right, what we think a good team is, but we'd have no objective way of getting us all to move in the same direction. So we're going to keep pushing toward that and challenge ourselves to say, are we getting there? And the evaluation helps us to say, is each meeting helping us to get there? So as you put your comments into the evaluation form, if there are things we're doing during the meeting that don't help us to move there, or that we could do differently, you have to be real honest about putting that down. And I know that's a change in culture for people too. I don't know your handwriting yet, I promise. I might know some of yours, But even if I did, it wouldn't matter, right? We still need to have good feedback so we can make things effective. No point in getting together a couple times a year and being ineffective. That's a waste for everybody, you included and me. So this is just our baseline data. We will see this change as we change our behavior individually and collectively. I put this in front of you last time, and I think it's worth sharing again, and maybe a nice loud voice here. Denise, do you mind reading it?
I can't see it.
Oh, do you want to hand it off? You could phone a friend.
The task of leadership is not to put greatness into people, but to elicit it. For the greatness is there already? Is that what that says? For the-
Sorry, I didn't bring my glasses.
Math teacher.
You got it. No problem. You could say next time, I need an accommodation, or hand it off. That way I'll know I did not know Denise wore glasses, so if I knew that, I wouldn't have picked on you. Feel free to say that. I just figured it was easier for you to say it than me. Thank you. I truly believe that. And you did some homework, hopefully, about your best self. We're going to spend some time on that. But one of the reasons as a leader I focus on that is I truly believe, and this may come from my bias as being a special educator, we can work on people's disabilities all we want. But likely, if it truly is a disability in somebody, and I don't mean a special ed type of a disability, but it's not their strength, we're going to throw a lot of energy into something where it might be better off if we try and look at the strengths and the assets people have and really accentuate those and try and bring opportunities for people to bring those to the forefront. So that's a bias I have, and I put it on the table because maybe some of you believe we should be fixing people's deficits. I think of a ring as being round and it doesn't have a beginning point and an ending point. I see people on that same circle. Where we draw the line of strength or disability or normal or abnormal, in my mind, is arbitrary. It's based on context in a situation. So there's no absolute disability. It's what's valued at the time. There's no absolute strength. It's what's valued at the time. So, or if you took a ring and you said, where am I going to draw the line? There's going to be Rebecca on one side of the line and me on the other. But what does that say about who we are and what we offer? It's all contextual. So I think leadership, we as leaders, if we can bring out the good that's already in our people and help them to use that to make us better, I think we'll be stronger as an organization. It doesn't mean we get to then say, well, my disability or weakness is X, and so you have to excuse me for that, and I'm not accountable. That's not true either. But I think if we spent time finding our strengths and putting people in position to use those for the betterment of the whole, we might move faster as an organization. So a couple things that I believe in, but also the researchers of the Best Self Activity believe in, is that we're all full of uniquenesses, and excellence is a function of our uniqueness, usually a pattern over time. Sometimes we don't even know our own strengths. So the reason I gave you that exercise is so you could see what other people think of you. What are some of the strengths people see in you? You may have known them, you may not have known them. Or they might have been something that was just confirming, or where you said, wow, you know, I didn't know that about myself. Also, if we capitalize on them, we can be better as a whole. If I know John has a particular strength and I need support in that area, I can go to John and ask for his help. But if we don't recognize each other's strengths, we then don't use them. And I believe this, you can push back if you would like to, educators tend to be highly individual, meaning we think we have to do all the work ourselves. When you're in a classroom, you shut your door and you have to do all the work yourself. Then you get to your next stage in your career and you still think you have to do all the work yourself. So how do we use each other and make the load a little lighter and get better results on account of that? And then also thinking about motivation and what motivates us and how effective we are. If I'm always working in my deficit, I'm not being very effective. So those are some beliefs that I have, and our researchers about the Best Self exercise also share, and maybe you do too. If not, maybe I'm pushing you in a different direction, and that would be okay too. So, here's what I want you to do is find one elbow partner. That means one other person at your table. If we have an uneven number, then it's okay to have 3. You're just going to have to talk faster. You each get 1 minute. Don't talk yet, because I'm going to give you some specifics. This exercise, when somebody's sharing with you their response to what it was like to gather the feedback and what it was like to request it, we often start making the connection to our own experience right away, and we stop listening. So I'm going to push you really hard to ignore yourself and really listen for a minute and then switch. Okay? Decide who your partner is, find them. Decide who's going to talk first. You have a minute, go.
It didn't really bother me to send out the note, but I attached a little note at the end of mine, like, don't worry, you'll get a chance to talk about what I don't do well too, because it was hard for me to ask people for feedback about me personally. About my job is fine, but about me personally was harder. But one of the parts that was helpful is that when I read the feedback, some of the things that came in were things that I don't feel like I do real well, but other people did, so it gave me a little bit of breathing room. Like I could kind of let a few things go that I'm probably being a little bit harder on myself than I should be. So that was good.
Thank you, Jen. Anybody else?
Extremely difficult to send it out because, we met with Jen before and we said a lot of the guys who are elementary principals, they want to know what they need to improve on. We don't celebrate enough. We don't talk about the things we do well. So I was telling Rebecca, I would send it out and I would get feedback and I was like reluctant to even click on the email because I really don't. It's just tough for. I'm a good husband. I get my to-do list and I know what I do wrong all the time at home. I want to know, I want to know what to improve on. So it was tough that way.
We were just talking about how it was really nice to get the feedback back. I asked for it from everybody, and I did it right away at the end of the year before I pissed anyone off. So I got great feedback. But like today was a long day, and I was like going through them again, so it's kind of nice to go back to it and see what you're doing. So.
But you're going to take your chart paper and you're going to simply list the positives. So if somebody said calm under pressure, you're going to write calm under pressure. Somebody wrote listens well, you're going to write listens well. If it's on there for one person, you don't have to write it again because it showed up for somebody else. We're just going to capture over the next couple of minutes all the strengths you heard from the people who gave you feedback. Okay? All right, I'm going to give you your next direction. We're going to do a brief gallery walk so you can see the comments everybody made. Wherever you see your chart, don't start there. You'll want to get to there because there are 2 charts in every area. So there are 2 here, 2 here. Better because when we're done today, we leave. We're not here for seat time, in other words, right? So get up, find the charts, read them, return to your seat, and then we'll have a brief conversation.
First year was a challenge. First year, far from the bumps.
All right, here's what you're going to do in your next activity. I want you to find no more than 2 people. You could be one and another person, but you can't be bigger than a group of 3. I want you to find somebody you feel very comfortable speaking with, because you're going to have a dialogue about this exercise, and it's going to be more about your personal experience with the exercise. We'll come back to this in a little bit. The screen prompts for the dialogue include what's on the screen, but you're certainly welcome to go in others' directions. So you're going to share your best self with another person. You're going to say how this best self is alike or different from how you viewed yourself in terms of north, south, east, west. Different tools for a different purpose, but they connect. Do you believe everyone sees your best self the same way, or did the feedback tell you that? How does your knowledge of your best self help you, and how will it help us in Wayne Westland? And last of all, what are the risks associated with knowing your best self? Okay? So you're going to find another person or two, no groups larger than 3. You're going to have a dialogue together, no more than 9 minutes total. So my watch, 4 o'clock, I'm going to start bringing you back to close. You don't have to write.
Mine was that I'm the North, and a lot of the responses that I got from my staff on this was that a lot of North abilities, but a lot of South qualities. And it's truly, I'll be honest with you, those you'll be really like, truly have to work on my South side a lot. Right? So it just shows that, I mean, I guess validated for me that how important it is, because it's even shining through in how they see me. So.
Next table
My
is
chamber,
fine.
she always has
I don't want
something
the
to say.
next table. Okay.
I think for me, one of the ahas was that the things that they wrote down are the things they truly value and they need from you, and that's what sticks out. So not that those are your only strengths, and I know that they weren't asked to elaborate on our weaknesses, but the things that they wrote, it's because at some point you did that for them, and that stuck with them, and that's what's important in their daily interactions with you.
And one of the things that we talked about was what they're actually saying about you fits your direction. Are you willing to branch outside of that direction? So one of the areas that I gave is, if you're always a go-getter and kind of doing tasks, do you have the ability to think about a long-term goal and have patience and kind of go to a different direction for a little while? Or are you just only this way and you're going to be stuck inside that box, as we said, that you're never going to branch outside of there?
Daniel and I shared a counseling background as well as our current positions. And what we had discovered is people come to depend on us for lack of a better way of putting it, our soft skills, person skills that maybe are beyond those hard objective skills. And with that, we were trying to develop what we could mean by risks. What is the risk of this? And what came up in our conversation is people come to depend on us for those aspects of where we're at our best. And as educators, we have an obligation to try to share those with others and model that we're good at, so that we can improve in a reciprocal way with people we interact with.
So Andy and I spent some time talking about the risks as well, and what's the risk of knowing what your best self is. And one of the things that we talked about is that somebody that does that might not continue to improve once they know what their best self is, or might become overconfident in some of those areas. So it's always important that just because somebody's identified that as a strength, that you don't lose sight of continuing to make that also an improvement point.
One of the things that we noticed as we were jotting down on the poster is our group was comprised of one of each direction, and we didn't have any overlap in our best selves. So we thought that was pretty unique that we represented it all. And then as jotting it down, those things that identified us when we were at our best are absolutely in the directional activity we did before.
Yeah, ditto. I mean, we talked about what Jen said, how some people saw us in different ways than we saw ourselves. Yet, like Jenna said, they also validated some of the things, but we want to make sure that we are growing, like your group said. So that's it. Our ahas.
One thing to note on this is we asked for their opinion of what our best self is, and so I think of like the love languages book, and so this is what they value, and so whether this is my strength or not, it's what these people find value in. So when they are telling me what is best, this is their opinion of what is valuable. This is what their need is, as opposed to necessarily my skill set.
I think the conversation that we had to do with some of those qualities that you have that people believe are your best self that you kind of struggle sharing because there's a risk associated with it because of your position. There are things that are more personable about you, and some people see those things in glimpses and they say, well, I like that, but there's risk associated with that in the mind of the person because you have a position and people are expecting a certain thing from you that you believe they're expecting, and so you don't show that part of yourself so much.
Well, it wasn't my experience. We're talking with my partner that I wish I had thought of when we sent this out, was she said that she actually sent it out to people she knew didn't like her. And I wish I had done that. Can you tell me a strength? And she said that it really bridged a relationship with someone to say maybe we could meet in common grounds. I thought that was an interesting idea.
Anybody else that didn't get a chance that's wanting to say something? So I think we put a lot of ideas in the room that you need to weigh. So the objectivity of it, whether it's based on a standard, whether it's what we're really good at or somebody's value in what we do. So those are all things we'll keep pushing on. Let's go back to the charts for a minute. And just as you reflected on those charts, think about whether people in this group represent things that are good about them that are not your areas of strength or what you lead and excel with, or that people mention to you. If there was something on a chart that was not something brought up for you, raise your hand. You don't have to share what it was, but was there something on a chart that you didn't put there and you know it doesn't really represent you or nobody brought it up about you? Okay? Now let's go the other way and let's talk about where you saw people who are just like you or the things that were shared about you. So raise your hand if other people's charts shared information similar to your own. Okay? Now I want to ask you, what could this do for us as Wayne Westland Community Schools or the Leadership Council in terms of our strengths or how we move forward? What can it do for us? So what? So we wrote these great things on a chart. Now what? Jeff.
Right now, one of the things that we identified right in our group is the fact that we are lacking in direction. In a sense, there's only very few people that are east. So even when we can bridge some of the other ones, and we have a lot of strengths in other areas, we are missing a lot in the east. And how do we kind of deal with that? Do we try and develop those skills? Do we rely on those people in the east to kind of shadow them a little bit and give us some ideas of what to do? And when we have commonality with other people, maybe our best bet is to try and interact with some of the people who don't have our commonality, try and see how other people interact with their staff.
Anybody else?
I heard everybody talk, and a lot of folks we did the 4 directions before, and everybody signed up, and we kind of know whether we're north or south, east, west. But today's activity, and everybody raised their hand because we looked at all these charts, and we have a lot of common values. I mean, we in this business, if you look at that, there are many things on the charts we put up today, we all have those values. And we all do that. So that should bring us very close. I think that's an outcome of today, that this should realize now that we are all in this together, and we all have common values, and we all have basic direction that we want to go in. So I think it would be easier for us now, with this knowledge, to row in the same direction.
So a good time to pick up the sheet of paper in front of you that says homework. Because we're going to take this another step. So we have standards by which we evaluate ourselves, and in this I'm talking about not formal evaluation, although it can include that, and you'll see that it does. But there are standards within our professions. I gave you some at the last meeting in August. If you don't have those today, that's okay, it's homework. That's why you don't have them repeated in front of you, but you can go back to the August meeting. I gave you 21 competencies that Marzano highlights as being important for school leaders of every type, especially in moving forward first order and second order change. So go back to that as a resource. Gave you 2 articles from Harvard Business Review about focused leadership traits and innovative leaders. Look at those. And for those of whom we truly have an evaluation tool, look at that as well. I know we may be revising that. But use those and see what connections you see between the feedback people gave you and those particular competencies. And then look at in what ways you'll use your strengths to help us grow and succeed. And then whose strengths will complement yours for the betterment of our district. Who can you get to know, to kind of do what Jeff said. Make sure when we're collaborating together, we're looking at, did we bring all the types into the fold? Because they can push us in a direction we won't push ourselves naturally. So I want you to give some reflection. If you're really good at remembering in your head and you do it tomorrow and you'll remember all the details, don't have to write anything down. I'm not collecting it, but I'll be pushing you in exercises like we did today for dialogue related to the homework. I'm going to give some feedback on some ways to align our resources to the priorities we would have. So let me tell you what you have in front of you. District Management Council is a professional organization, much like the principals organization or a superintendent's group or district management. And they actually brought together school districts from across the country. And they said, we're all struggling with the same thing. We need to do better with less. So what strategies help schools do better with less? They came up with 71 strategies. Then they culled them down by looking at the criteria that are listed on your chart. And you'll see them at the top, and I'll go over them in just a second. They culled them down to 10 that have the highest impact on either financial benefit, student achievement, political feasibility, or the certainty of gain when you look at the complexity of implementation. And I have been sharing since coming here that implementation is an area we could get better at. We start initiatives, and this isn't anybody's fault. It's pretty common in education. We jump on the bandwagon, get going, but we don't really have a good way of checking progress or making sure we're moving forward, or expecting the implementation dip, which is a very normal process. So if you look at the chart in front of you, you have the 10 strategies. The bar graph gives you the sense of whether that was difficult to implement and had gains or was not as you look across the chart. You're going to have a conversation at your table, and you for yourself are going to, after some dialogue, and you don't have a lot of information and that's purposeful. I could give you the book on this. I don't want to at this point. I don't want anybody feeling like they have to have read 10 chapters to do this activity. The headings give you enough information with the criteria for you to give a gut response on how you would rank order these items. They would be for further study, not necessarily for us to immediately do. But I want your feedback about that. I want to know what you think. So when we look at things that have high political impact, that means our implementation is going to be more difficult, no matter who the politics is with, whether it's internal or external. If it has low fiscal gain, we might not want to spend all that time and energy on it if our focus is really on making sure we can realign our resources. So you're going to have a dialogue at your table. And then you're going to take 10 sticky notes. And you're going to number them from 1 to 10, okay? You might want to put the initials or the code of what is the item in case it falls off the chart. And then you're going to come up and you're going to put your name on one. Actually, you need 11. You're going to put your name on one and you're going to put it here. And then the items are listed here. There are 2 charts in case we don't have enough room. And when everybody ranks all of them 1 to 10, what we should be able to see is what ones rise to the top as the most important for everybody. So this is the most important critical piece of information. Number 1 is your top priority, most important. In other words, the lowest score in the end will be the most important. So say to your neighbor that number 1 is your top priority that you think we should consider first. Number 10 is the one you think we could put off until the end. Tell that to your neighbor so you know how to number from 1 to 10 and you don't go backwards. Leadership Institute to complete our strategic planning for this year, which is a big goal and a big effort that we will engage the entire community with. So MLI's representative to our district is John Silveri, and he and I will meet next week to go ahead and do some of the original planning to get things moving. There will be a variety of stakeholder meetings across the community, including our cities, our chambers, our rotaries, our staff, our parents, our students. He will facilitate that. I will be working with you and our newspapers to get it communicated widely. Some of the meetings will occur during the day and the evening, but just a whole variety of things to get people involved. The stakeholder meetings will be really largely for anybody who wants to participate. And then we will have an ad hoc advisory committee, which will be made up of about 25 to 30 people, representative again of staff, community, parents, etc. They will only meet a couple of times. They're not going to do that big, broad strategic planning of old, where you met 25 times in a year. They're going to meet only a couple of times, and they're going to really be the analyzers of all of the stakeholder data. And then we'll take a break in between that, and data will come back to our administrative teams to say, what kind of plans do we need to put forth to hit the targets that people are talking about in terms of need for the community, and then it'll go back out for feedback again. So we'll work internally, and then go back out for more feedback. It's a bit of a different approach than typical strategic planning if you're used to that, and we wanted to do that purposefully to engage more people. I will be working with a core guiding team with Mr. Silveri. It will be myself, Sally Madison from the board. I'm going to ask a professional staff member and a support staff who are on steering committee to join us, and I will be asking a parent from steering committee to join us. And they will meet with me and John Silveri a couple times throughout the process to make sure we're headed down the right road. Lots of communication will be coming out to staff, as well as yourself. We'll do that through email and the scoop. The scoop from here on out will always tell us where we are in terms of strategic planning, how to get involved, all of that. So keep pointing people in that direction. The most important part of this whole process is hearing what everybody wants us to be like in the next 5 years or so we can hit that target and set goals that get us there. So lots will be coming out on that. Any questions about that or what you want to know right now? Okay, so just keep your ears and eyes open for information. That is the end of our meeting today. That's enough for one day. Take a look at the goals again, the evaluation form. You can leave everything you don't need on the table.